Okay, we're gonna get started. Thank you guys for coming today. Gosh, Stacy, this is what our fourth one for eating and living well. So today
So,
we're gonna be talking about energy and sleep, and this is Stacy Kennedy for those that haven't met her yet. And all right, Stacy, I'll let you take it away.
awesome. Yeah, thank you, Leah. Good to be back and be with everyone here. If you remember, if it's your first time, I really like to keep these very interactive. So please, I think it's either the chat or the Q&A where you're able to type in comments or questions just as I go along. We'll have extra time at the end for Q&A, but it's helpful to kind of try to make it more conversational. So I'll ask you for prompts. But it would be great if you think of any nutrition questions related to our topic of stress and sleep, or really any other nutrition related questions, please ask away. This is also just a time for us to be able to connect. So today's topic is a good one for this time of year and really any time of year. We're going to be talking all about nutrition for better sleep and less stress. So let me just kind of pull this up here. And we're going to do some activities. So I have two activities at the end for us to do. So one is a sleep worksheet. So I have it as a PDF and I'll be sharing a copy of these slides and of these worksheets so you can go back to them later. But we'll kind of go through the worksheet. So if you have your phone where you could type or a pen and paper handy, at the end of this, you're going to be making a plan for sleep. And even if you're already sleeping great, then you can share what your techniques are with everybody else. And then we'll go through some stress management planning as well and how nutrition relates into that. So get ready to do a little bit of work at the end, which will be, a really nice way to have some concrete action steps following this talk. I will say, since it's a series, I recognize a few names from the list. So I guess before we dive into this topic, I'm curious if anyone has anything to report from our previous topic. So last time we met was kind of after Halloween, before Thanksgiving, and we talked about sugar. And one things we reviewed was like sneaky sugars and different ways to just notice extra sugar in your diet and cut down. So anyone who was there, participated, and has some feedback in terms of like things you tried or worked on, please share that. And that way we can kind of keep these series rolling. So next time we'll talk a little bit, we'll recap at the beginning, anything related to sleep or stress that you tried and how it went. So feel free to put that into the chat around sugar if you would like. And then I'm going to get going while you're doing that and start talking about our topic today. So kind of a brief story, we're not sleeping enough as a culture or as a population. And, individually, I hope it's better for you, but, chances are looking at the statistics, it might not be. And on top of that, many medications can be problematic when it comes to getting a good night's sleep as well. So if you're taking steroids as part of your cancer treatment or other kinds of medications, they may be causing digestive issues that keep you up at night or may have other mechanisms for how they are interrupting your sleep. So about a third of adults in the US sleep less than the recommended amount. So it is suggested that adults get a minimum of 7 hours of sleep. 7 to 9 is the range. It's really not good to sleep too much either. It's kind of helpful to be in that sweet spot. Again, when you're going through treatment, you may need extra sleep beyond the 9 hours, and by all means, it's individualized. But many people sleep 6 hours a night. Some people sleep like as little as 4 or 5. And you'll often hear people say things like, oh, my body's fine. That's just how I work. And it's okay. And the thing is, it's not okay. So, when we think about lack of sleep, there are many issues that can come up, right? And so this time of year, it's dark, so to some extent, your body wants to be at the upper end of that range, right? It gets dark early, it's dark in the morning. Your body's trying to tell you to kind of hibernate a little bit, but we're just as busy as ever. And so we're going to kind of think about things that relate into that difficulty with sleep. But a third of adults, that's a lot of people. So that's 1 out of every 3 people is getting less than 7 hours of sleep on a regular basis. Kids need even more sleep. So, depending on their phase of development, kids need more sleep. So, it's not just little kids. If you have a teenager, they are growing and they need extra sleep. And they're sometimes even busier than we are between activities and homework. So, making sleep a priority for the whole family is imperative. And so, not only does sleep make us feel better, we're happier, we're nicer, we're less irritable, but sleep is a crucial part of immunity, of energy level, of metabolism, and our overall health. It's just as important as eating healthy and being physically active. So a lot of people don't realize that. So, when I work with people, for example, somebody who's trying to lose weight and they've gained extra weight or they have extra weight on board and they're eating all the right things, they're exercising, and they're not losing weight. So sometimes it's the timing and the combination of foods for sure. And we'll talk about hormones a bit later in the series. But a lot of times it's lack of sleep or it's stress levels, right? Whether you realize it or not. And so tapping into sleep is an important way if you're trying to lose weight to align your metabolism. Now, if you're a cancer patient who has lost weight and you want to gain weight back, you also need sleep because it will help recalibrate your metabolism in a different direction. So it isn't that sleep causes weight loss or sleep causes you to be able to gain weight, that sleep helps a lot of your systems recalibrate overnight so that they are more optimized. And that includes your immune system. Your best potential for recovery and repair is while you are sleeping. So you want to fuel your body with the building blocks it needs to make immune cells, to fuel your metabolism. You want to move your body to kind of help those processes along. And then you want to sleep to lock it in and get all those building blocks you've been eating, those nutrients, to actually be able to work optimally in your body. So sleep is a big piece of this overall puzzle. Okay, we'll get more into all of this. And I'm sure many of you know this, right? Like, growing up, if you weren't feeling well, your mom might have told you to get some sleep, right? Or sleep is the best medicine. I know for myself, if my kids have got germs, if stuff's going around, if I ever start to feel the slightest, sore throat or headache or anything like that, I'm checking out early and getting to bed and leaving the family to fend for themselves, because it's really a really good preventive measure to help you keep your immune system strong. So that's why we put it in this time slot, because we're in the throes of cold, flu, and other viruses. So, all right, what are the big nutrients we're going to talk about today? So we're going to talk about vitamin D. We're going to talk about vitamin C. We're talking about the timing of eating and how that relates to your sleep. We'll talk about magnesium, talk about this overall eating pattern and how to use that to help you sleep. And then, as I said at the end, we're going to go over some real concrete action steps that you can use to make this successful for you personally. All right, so vitamin D, what does that have to do with sleep? It's a sunshine vitamin. It actually is a lot. So lack of vitamin D, and all of us here are at risk of low vitamin D simply based on where we live. So essentially anyone living full-time or in the winter north of like Atlanta and across the world on that is going to be at risk of low vitamin D. So if you haven't already had your primary care doctor or some other doctor test your vitamin D blood level, I would encourage you to ask, because many people are low and don't realize it. So lack of vitamin D, and yes, you can eat mushrooms, you can eat dairy, you can eat yogurt, you can drink milk, you can have salmon. Those are all good sources of vitamin D and healthy foods. But if you have a low blood level or other risk factors for low D, the food by itself will not be enough to bring it up. And so you might need supplements along with the foods. But again, you want to kind of talk to your doctor or talk to like someone like me, like your dietitian, who can look at your personal factors and give you recommendation for like how much and that kind of thing. But if you don't get enough vitamin D, whether it's from the sun, when the sun has direct rays, in the summertime, or from supplements, That lack of D is associated with an increased risk of sleep disorders, a shorter sleep duration. So not being able to stay asleep long enough, waking up kind of in the middle of the night, 4 a.m., 5 a.m., not getting back to sleep. Poor sleep quality. So like kind of light sleeper type of thing, or just waking up and not feeling rested, and just overall less sleep at night. So lack of vitamin D is particularly important for certain populations in terms of research. So I mentioned living in Maine or New Hampshire, Massachusetts, New England, we're all at risk. Additionally, some populations are more at risk, either because just genetically how their body converts vitamin D, or that's kind of the best way to explain it. So people of African American descent, women of Korean descent, and men over the age of 65. So even regardless of where they live, have an additional risk factor for low vitamin D, and many other people do as well. So that's why it's helpful that it's a blood test. So yeah, Sue, we're going to talk about napping actually a little bit later. So I'm glad that you asked about that. All right, so we will get to that though. It's a good question. So moving on. So vitamin D, talk to your doctor, probably consider taking a supplement, and we can get more into, all that as we go on. If you've got questions, feel free to ask me, like how much or what to ask for, that kind of thing. Okay, so now we're going to look at vitamin C. So vitamin C, we know, is an antioxidant. And this one I'm going to ask you, what foods, because vitamin C you can definitely get in your diet, and you should. It might be in your multivitamin, that's great. We will talk about who should take extra or not. But first tell me, what are some examples of foods that you know of that have vitamin C? And while you're typing that, I'm going to tell you why it's super important. So it's an antioxidant that protects our cells from damage and also helps with wound healing. We know that vitamin C is imperative for supporting our immune system as well. So that recommended 7 to 9 hours of night will help us to have the most optimal anti-inflammation. So reducing inflammation in the body, have less oxidative stress, meaning like less stress to like our cells and our body functions, due to vitamin C and other antioxidants in their blood. So it's basically saying if you get enough vitamin C in your diet, and you're getting the recommended amount of sleep, the combination of the vitamin C and the sleep is going to give you an advantage. And that advantage is less inflammation, more antioxidant potential. So more potential for healing, for recovery, and more defense of your immune system and protection against getting sick. So it's the combination of you can't just take vitamin C or eat a lot of it. You also have to sleep to really make it more synergistic. So I hope I kind of explained that well. So Wendy says foods with vitamin C would include strawberries and citrus fruits. Yes, absolutely. What would be some other fruits or vegetables that people can think of? So share that with me. I have a list, but I want to hear what else you guys think. Okay, the next part of all this research to understand. So people with short amounts of sleep, so that's defined as 5 or 6 hours a night, that's considered short sleep because you're under the recommendation. Or very short, so that's people with less than 4 or less hours a night. They are found to have lower vitamin C levels in their blood, lower vitamin D levels in their blood, and lower carotenoid is like beta carotene as an example, like that's in like orange vegetables. It's another very important immune supportive antioxidant. So people with the lower levels of sleep, even if they're eating foods with vitamin C, and even if they're getting vitamin D outside, or they're eating butternut squash and sweet potatoes, if they're not also sleeping, they will have lower levels of those key nutrients in their blood, because essentially those nutrients are working overtime. Instead of increasing at night and kind of going around and doing cleanup and optimizing your body, they're not able to do that role because they're busy essentially doing the cleanup of the negative side effects of not getting enough sleep, if that makes sense. So people are at risk because those levels drop of catching more colds, flus, or other illnesses. Okay, so hopefully everybody, I can't see you, is with me and understands this. But what we're talking about today is eating more of certain foods and pairing that with sleep to really give you the best potential to stay healthy and vibrant. So other foods with vitamin C would include kiwis and would also include vegetables. So for example, peppers like bell peppers, green peppers, red peppers, yellow peppers, cauliflower, broccoli. These are even potatoes, believe it or not, have a little bit of vitamin C. So those vegetables are also a good source of vitamin C, besides the excellent suggestions that Wendy had of fruit. Okay. So each week we're kind of building a little bit on our understanding here of nutrition, right? So now let's talk about magnesium. We may have talked about magnesium before in terms of immunity. So magnesium is a mineral and it is very important. And again, many Americans, many people in Australia, many people in a lot of parts of the world are getting insufficient amounts or facing magnesium deficiencies. Secondly, some cancer treatments can cause your body to release magnesium into your urine instead of absorbing it back into your body. So some people going through cancer treatment have low magnesium, might even need like an IV infusion of it, or might need to take supplements. So again, this group, it's a really pertinent topic to focus on magnesium. We need magnesium for energy production. So that's another way of saying metabolism. We need it for all of our muscle and our nerve function, right? So it's an electrolyte. So like muscle cramps, that kind of stuff. We need it to help regulate blood sugar. It helps improve our insulin sensitivity, regulate blood sugar, and also regulate blood pressure. So I kind of gave you some answers here. Where do we get magnesium? If you have other sources, share them, but we can get them from whole grains. So foods like oats would be an example, or brown rice, other whole grains, dark leafy green veggies. So spinach, Swiss chard, kale, for example, collard greens, dairy. So, I mean, it doesn't have to be low fat, but generally that's suggested. So dairy products like milk, yogurt, dark chocolate. People like hearing that. That's a really good source of magnesium, and nuts. So like almonds and other nuts are also a good source of magnesium. Blackstrap molasses is an excellent source of magnesium. So it's kind of a nice old school New England natural kind of sweetener for when you do want to use a little bit of sugar. So as far as a supplement goes, actually we'll talk about that more. Okay, so what magnesium is best for absorption is Steve's question, which is a good question. So it depends, Steve. Okay, so I'm going to answer that like in 2 seconds. So some people may be directed by their doctor, by their dietitian, to take a magnesium supplement. So if it is recommended for you, it might help you with insomnia and sleep. So there are gummies, like not like CBD gummies, like gummies that are just magnesium, or powders or capsules that are, it's best to take them at night, because in addition to helping with the other functions of magnesium, it has been shown to help with sleep. So if you need to take magnesium, take it at night. Secondly, if you're having trouble sleeping, let's talk through a little bit as to whether or not taking magnesium would be right for you. You'd still want to be eating the foods regardless. That's going to be very helpful. But the supplements for some people are shown to also reduce the amount of time it takes to fall asleep, right? And in part, it's because it does help relax muscles and really activate like a deeper sleep. Now, the side effect of taking depends on the dose. The side effect of taking magnesium, particularly in higher doses, it's very helpful for constipation. So if you have constipation and trouble sleeping, that's a good time to ask your doctor or dietitian about taking a magnesium supplement at night. If you're having diarrhea or more frequent bowel movements, either because that's how your body works, you have IBS with diarrhea, you have Crohn's, or medication like immunotherapy or a certain chemo, if you have a side effect to your cancer meds of diarrhea, you do not want to just go and start taking magnesium supplements because Stacy said they help me with sleep, because it will probably make your diarrhea worse. So again, this is why it's good to talk to your healthcare professional first. As far as the best for absorption, so magnesium glycinate is like glycinate. That type of magnesium is pretty readily absorbed. And some people have a low level of magnesium in their red blood cells, and there's like a test for that. So that can be a good type of magnesium to take. If you're the person with constipation, then magnesium citrate or magnesium oxide tend to be the forms that you would want to choose, because it will be more helpful for the constipation. If you're looking to, if you don't have constipation, the glycinate might be better. And prescription magnesium that doctors sometimes will prescribe during certain treatments do tend to be the oxide. That tends to be the prescription amount. And so as far as how much, like in a day, women need at least 320 milligrams. Men, I think it's like 450. And typically if you're taking it as a supplement, just for adults, you would take, probably anywhere from like 300 to 400 at night. You might take as low as 240. Sometimes they come in 120s. But again, don't just go wing it or go on Google. Like, talk to somebody, and we can answer more about that later. I will say, like, magnesium doesn't really tend to interfere with treatments, but like I mentioned, there are particular factors. I'll go back to my slide quickly here. So I think we may or may not have discussed this already, but vitamin C, as far food's great. If you're going through radiation treatment, if you're on certain kinds of chemotherapy, then you do not want to take a vitamin C supplement, because high dose antioxidant supplements may reduce the effectiveness of certain kinds of cancer treatment, but not all cancer treatment. All radiation, yes. If you're getting radiation, whether it's for, breast cancer, ovarian, colon cancer, head and neck, lung cancer, whatever kind of cancer, when you're getting radiation, you want to get vitamin C from food, definitely not from a supplement. With chemo, it specifically depends on the chemo drug as to whether or not that's a thing or not. If you're not on treatment, again, go to your diet first, right? But I'm bringing this up to say it's very individualized, right? So this is part of why at NECS, we're offering nutrition services, forms like this, as well as starting to open up some one-on-one visits, because it is very individualized. All right, let's keep going. So overall, certain nutrients can be helpful for sleep. So we talked about magnesium, vitamin C, vitamin D. Now we're going to look at not so much, we're going to look at what you're eating, and then we're going to look at like your overall pattern. So for better sleep, people who eat more fruits and vegetables, more plant-based protein, so legumes like beans, lentils, nuts and seeds, chickpeas, and tofu, edamame, people with more plant-based proteins and whole grains, and who also eat less processed meat, so bacon, salami, ham, those kind of things, and less red meat, tend to sleep better. Now, as far as why, a lot of possibilities, right? Many. One could be those plant-based foods in the first bullet point here have a lot of magnesium, a lot of vitamin C, just as an example, right? But we do recommend, and we did talk about this, how the Mediterranean diet is what is suggested for cancer prevention and cancer survivorship. And that Mediterranean diet has less meat, doesn't have to be none, but has less, and has more plant foods. So this is just another reason to start including more plant foods in your diet. You don't need to be vegan, you don't need to be vegetarian, you don't need to give up meat, but we want to increase the amount of plant-based food. Secondly, researchers found, specifically studying that longer sleep duration, so people who were sleeping the longest, that they reported consuming less protein, like specifically from meat, and less processed meat than the people in the normal sleep group. So again, changing up your diet just in general, to have more plant foods might help you to sleep better. Oh, wow. Yeah. Okay, Steve. But it's just supplements, not food. So, I hope, you could eat all the blueberries in the world and all the kiwis and all the oranges. But yes, we are raising the awareness around targeted nutrition and cancer treatment to kind of help make sure everybody's on the same page. So yeah, so I wouldn't worry too much about it. It's more for anybody kind of currently in that treatment or anybody going forward. You would want to kind of make that note about the antioxidants. Okay, again, on overall eating pattern. So we know people who reported longer sleep duration had less meat and more plants. People who reported in the research, people who had low sleep quality, so not about how long they slept, but the quality, how well they slept. It was found that the people who had more carbs and fiber, you can see this whole list. Basically, people with more of these plant foods and these nutrients, which are primarily found in plant foods. So beta carotene is in like orange veggies. Vitamin E is found in like almonds. Thiamine is like a B vitamin. So B1, B6 is another B, obviously another B vitamin. Those are in like whole grains, are a really good source of B vitamins, which is again why like low carb isn't always the answer. Folate is in like dark green leafy vegetables and citrus. We talked about C. We know calcium's in dairy foods, but also dark green leafy veggies, also in pistachios, and like tofu and soy foods, edamame. Magnesium, potassium's in like a lot of fruits and vegetables, and nuts and seeds and nut butters. Iron is in meat, but iron is also in those like dark green vegetables, leeks, and then fruit is, we know what fruit is. So basically saying that the overall eating pattern helped people who had low sleep quality transition into higher sleep quality. So when they made that change in their diet, then in the studies, it was shown that they were improving their sleep quality when they changed their diet to have more plants. So the next topic is about the timing of eating and sleep. And this again is, we could mirror this for metabolism and weight management, which we will get more into in a future session as well. So we need to explore, we're going to do it right now, but we also need more research, which is happening around how the timing, so not what you're eating, but when you're eating, the timing of meals and snacks and how that relates to your sleep. So I know I already kind of put this up here, but I'm going to go back for a second. So you guys, oh good, fish is a good question. Okay, tell me in terms of timing of eating and sleep, what are your thoughts on that? Like, what do you think I'm going to say? Or what did you just read on the screen? When do you think you should eat in terms of helping sleep? And when should you not eat and why? I'm curious because I think the why is sometimes shocking for people. Okay, but as far as, fish would fall into that Mediterranean diet. So fish is, if you're eating fish, you're not like vegan, but as I mentioned, that's not necessarily at all the goal here. So if you want to be following a Mediterranean diet and kind of a healthier protein source, that would include things like fish, that could include eggs, as well as those plant-based options. So yes, fish, like whether it's salmon, haddock, cod, sole, trout, you name it, those are all a great choice in terms of help. Now, especially things like the salmon and the sardines, because those are high in omega-3. And again, that's been correlated with less inflammation and beneficial in terms of sleep. So fish is in the yes column. Fish with a lot of plants is really going to be that recommended Mediterranean style. Okay, so yes, don't eat immediately before sleep or late at night. Right. Now, the reason why that is 100% true. After dinner, mentally, we want to think kitchen's closed. We can drink tea. Some of those magnesium powders make, like, if you put hot water in it, it kind of fizzes and makes like a nice beverage. You can have like an herbal tea, whatever, something like that, right? So if you're used to snacking at night, you might be snacking at night because you're hungry. You might be snacking at night because you didn't eat enough during the day. That's a big trigger. Or it's it's kind of how you unwind, right? And so let's plug something else in that can become a nice ritual, like a nice, herbal tea, for example, would be something to think about. So when we eat right before we go to sleep, or when we eat, sorry, wrong way. When we eat late at night, like when we think about weight management, right? People are like, oh, if I eat late at night, I don't have time to burn the calories off. Sure, but that's not why it really makes it hard to manage your weight. It's because, and this has to do with aging, this has to do with sleep, it has to do with metabolism. So think about if you're at work and you're supposed to stop working at 5 o'clock and it's like 4:55 and your boss comes in and is like, hey, here's this big project. I need you to do it into like past work hours. Right now, if you're not going to like that at all because you're supposed to leave work and that's not cool. And so, how long are you going to work at that job if you have the option of having a different job? You are going to burn out. That is kind of what's going on inside your body. It isn't that you don't have time to burn off the calories. It's that as we get into the night, your body systems are trying to wind down so that when you're in deep sleep, some of those involuntary things like supporting your immune system, healing and recovery, those can get the attention that they need, right? Instead of the waking, conscious body function. So when we eat late at night, you are burning out and overworking many of your systems, whether it's like your blood sugar regulation, your liver in terms of kind of, filtering out things in your body, like it sounds silly, like natural detoxification, basically. So there's a lot of things. So eating before you go to bed and eating late at night, if there's nothing else you remember from today, that is the one thing I would really, really encourage you to work on. You will see some dramatic changes in your life, including sleeping better. But it's not just about like forcing yourself to avoid the snack cabinet. It's like getting yourself to prioritize your self care and actually feed yourself during the day because you do need nourishment. So you're not skipping breakfast, you are not skipping lunch, you're eating, some meals. So, yeah, 4 hours before sleeping. Two is for sure the cutoff, and thinking about reflux and stuff like that. So, nobody should really be eating, less than 2 hours, within 2 hours of when you go to bed. 4 hours would be better. So, like, if you're able to have dinner at like 6:30 and you go to bed at 10:30, right? That works out great. So that is a good suggestion from Tandy, trying to kind of see how you can make that work. And if you do have to eat later, you should be eating your larger meal earlier so that later meal is lighter, more of a soup, more of some, eggs and veggies, something like that. So in terms of fasting, it depends how hungry you are, really. So like intermittent fasting, if the window's not too long, and so intermittent fasting is not a good idea for everyone, and it is not a weight loss program. It is more about immunity and anti-aging and things like that. So a 16-hour fast overnight can be too long for some people, and then kind of just create more challenges. So oftentimes, 12 hours overnight without eating, that's a good sort of rule of thumb and pretty approachable. Maybe 14 hours overnight is better if somebody wanted to try that. So that might be, eating dinner at 6 and not having breakfast until 8, for example. People who do things like intermittent fasting and don't eat their first bite until like noon, usually you've just gone too long. And so it's very hard to get this cadence and this optimization back. And people tend to eat later. So the research on intermittent fasting that is positive is really showing that circadian rhythm of like earlier being better, meaning stop eating earlier and then, therefore you're starting. But again, intermittent fasting is helpful for some people and can be risky for others. So sometimes going through cancer treatment, particularly if somebody is at risk for malnutrition, or having certain kinds of side effects, we wouldn't recommend it. So again, that's actually a great topic for like one-on-one meetings and discussions with your doctor, with dietitian. So nightly eating habits, eating immediately before bed and eating snacks after dinner is shown to, we already talked about this, increased risk of obesity. And this association is more significant for women than men. So take note on that. And so we talked about this, but I wanted to kind of talk about it before I showed you. So that circadian rhythm imbalance, slower metabolism, increased feelings of cravings and hunger, believe it or not, like eating late at night can like make you have more cravings and weight gain. So that energy use and metabolism is naturally like lower at night than during the day. So when you snack at night, it can really cause some challenges. Okay, so we talked a lot about sleep, and now we're going to kind of go through some action steps, and then we're going to look at that worksheet that I talked about, and we're going to kind of do a little bit of work. And this is where we're going to talk about napping. Okay, so what are some steps you can take to increase your healthy sleeping habits? Number one, following a routine, trying to go to bed and wake up around the same time every day. That includes weekends. So it doesn't have to be exactly the same. Like if you normally need to wake up, let's say at 6 during the week, and you're able to sleep until 8 on the weekend, that's a little different, but not crazy different. But if you're getting up at 4:30 or 5 to work out during the week and you're sleeping until 10 on the weekend, that's a big difference, and it's really hard for your body to recalibrate and adjust so quickly. Your body wants something smooth and easy, steady. So that is a routine, can be very helpful. And so like be careful starting a really good book late at night, because you might want to keep reading it and stay up, or watching a really good show too close to your bedtime. You might end up on the couch for quite some time. So so following that routine. Then, like I said, that difference, ideally it's not more than an hour. And the closer to the hour, like the better. So it can really, if you have a holiday party and you stay up, way past your bedtime one night, not a big deal. This is talking about more like week over week. A more consistent pattern is better. Another thing is before bedtime, giving yourself kind of an opportunity to unwind. So taking like an hour, this all sounds great. So we can think about how to apply it in your life. But if you were able to take an hour of quiet time before bed, so avoiding strenuous exercise, avoiding screens, particularly like blue light, like your phone, that would really help get your body ready for bed. That light might signal your brain that it's actually time to be awake. So reading like an actual book you hold in your hand with pages might be better. I know there are a lot of settings on like a Kindle, or other things like that. So utilizing those, I don't have mine on right now, but like the blue light glasses, those kinds of things can certainly be helpful. But really thinking of maybe doing like a gentle yoga or like a meditation before bed that doesn't involve a screen could be helpful. In terms of exercise, for younger people, they seem to still be able to sleep just fine if they work out at night, for many people. But as we get older, that's not so true. So working out earlier in the day, in the morning, or like midday, early afternoon, or even like 4 or 5 o'clock, it's pushing it. Ideally we exercise earlier in the day to help us sleep at night. Working out is going to boost our heart rate. You might feel tired after working out, like your body is like, "Ooh, I had a good workout." Your muscles might be kind of exhausted, but your energy system will be turned on. So if you're able to work out earlier in the day, that would be better in terms of sleeping. So Irene says, I need at least 3 meals, breakfast, lunch, or dinner. Yes. Or I will get a headache or migraine if I skip a meal. Yeah. Okay. That's a good way for your body to kind of get itself in a really nice routine. And it tells you when you've kind of broken that. She says she doesn't fast. How important is it to fast, and how often during the week should I try fasting? If you suffer from migraines, again, this is more like one-on-one. I could really kind of help give more information, but knowing what I know from what you've shared, if you suffer from migraines, I'm pretty much going to say not at all. because it's that driving the car gas brake, that real wild swing of no food and then food is probably going to trigger headaches like you've noticed. And there's no gold star for fasting. I mean, like every culture has some variation of it, right? But I think migraines tend to be a reason to not fast, and particularly not on a regular basis. What you're doing right now, that breakfast, lunch, dinner, and then not snacking at night is probably going to be far more effective. And in reality, you probably are going, if you're not snacking at night, it's pretty easy for somebody to go about 12 hours without eating. So I would say on the limited amount of information I have right now, it would not only not be important, it would be kind of contraindicated. I think it can trigger things like migraines. And again, but shifting more toward those plant-based foods. Plant-based foods can really help with migraines, making sure you get enough protein that is like a healthy source. So I think you're on the right track right now. Great question. Okay. So other things, we've mentioned a few of these, but not all of them. So avoiding large meals at least 2 hours before bed. We talked about that. 4 might be better. Alcohol. It's a good time of year to talk about this. So alcohol is a depressant, but alcohol does not help you sleep. And I'm sure many of us have experienced that. If you do drink, if you've gone out to dinner, you've had a couple glasses of wine, you may be waking up in the middle of the night. You may fall asleep, but you will likely have a very poor quality sleep and less duration. So alcohol late at night can definitely hinder sleep quality. So I'm not saying have alcohol in the morning, but really reducing alcohol intake and avoiding it really close to bed. This one makes sense, avoiding stimulants like nicotine or caffeine. Nicotine ideally at all, but in terms of caffeine, limiting that, and that time might shock you. So everybody genetically processes caffeine like at a different rate. So some people genetically process caffeine more quickly, right? So they may be able to have another cup of coffee at lunch or at 4 o'clock and fall asleep fine. Somebody else genetically does not process it as quickly. And so having coffee beyond the morning will actually keep them up at night. So the effects of like caffeine can last up to 8 hours. So ideally, particularly as we get older, if you want to have coffee, is definitely healthy. There's nothing wrong with coffee, especially if it's not, coming with a ton of sugars or artificial sweeteners and things like that. So let's say you have like a cup or so of coffee, 1, maybe 2 in the morning. You might do 1 cup of coffee, 1 cup of green tea. That would be phenomenal. And then maybe herbal tea at night. Or if you're drinking 4 cups of coffee now, you drink 2, and then you switch and have a cup or 2 of green tea, which has far less caffeine. But it really can mess with your system far longer than we realize. And again, it can be habit. So if everyone in the office, you smell it, it smells so good. Everyone in the office is having coffee, at 4 o'clock, get yourself some herbal tea, right? That would be better. Spending time outside to get vitamin D from the sun, being physically active, that helps you sleep. The days that you are walking or exercising in any way, or just literally getting outside, you will sleep better that night. So if you can go on a 15 or 30-minute walk, it doesn't even have to be like a power walk, just a slow walk during the day, you will start to see that you sleep better at night, especially the more regularly you're doing that. Keep your bedroom quiet, cool, not super hard this time of year, but if you have the heat on it, it can be challenging, and dark. The darker, the cooler, and the quieter it is, the more likely you will get that better quality of sleep. Other things could be like taking a hot bath or using any kind of relaxation technique. So meditation, there are many specifically for sleep. We talked about the magnesium supplement. So if you're taking these supplements, right, you would take vitamin D in the morning and you would take the magnesium at night, for example. Eat lots of fruits and vegetables, and obviously talk to your doctor. Okay, so we've got like 15 minutes right now. So I would like to go ahead and do this sleep journal worksheet together. So I'm just going to stop the share for a second here so I can pull up my other document. Feel free to also ask any questions. Okay, this is it. All right, so this is the same thing you saw on the slide, but bigger. So this is what I'm going to send along with the slides. So this is something you would be able to, download. We'll put this on the website or in the wherever Leah puts it for right now. Okay, so we want 7 to 9 hours of sleep each night. So what I want you to do, and you can just jot this down in front of you or just kind of make mental notes. Feel free to share with the group. So these are all suggestions. Many of them we just discussed that you could do to help your sleep routine. So what you want to do is check the ones that you are already doing. Let's see what you're doing now so we can see what you might consider adding. So for example, I don't think you can raise your hands on this, but all right, if you have a regular bedtime and a regular time you get up that's consistent pretty much all days of the week, you would make a check here or you would note that, on your little side paper on your phone. So I'm just curious, like you can just write like me or whatever. Like how many people are doing this now? How many people have those regular bedtimes currently? Or maybe I wish I could make a poll. I don't think I can do that on here. Okay, because I'm curious, like what things
I don't
in
know
general
how to,
people are
I
doing.
wish I knew how to do that, the polls.
I know we can look at it for next time because I have some idea. I don't see it on
Um,
here. No, if we can.
I do. Well, there's create. Oh gosh.
Oh, okay. All right. Next time, Leah, I will. It's
Yeah.
easy. It's fun.
Okay. Good. We'll do it next time.
Okay. So, okay. All right. So, we've got at least one person here. Steve is getting the regular bedtime. So I think that's a good one. All right. The next one, think about if you're doing this. Okay. Napping. So I want to kind of discuss this a little bit more because it's, kind of particular when you're going through treatment. So like in general for people, actually, so this, I want to kind of qualify this because for many people in treatment, napping might be very helpful, but we're going to put that down for a second. So just think like in general, outside of cancer treatment, it is better to not nap during the day. And if you do, that it's limited to like 15 to 20 minutes because it will interrupt that sleep quality at night. So, people used to talk more about sleep as like a bank account. So if you burn through more during the week, you deposit more on the weekend. And in a short term sense, yes, right? Like, my son had a sleepover birthday party this weekend. None of us got a lot of sleep. I did not nap. I would have liked to, but he did. He took a nap yesterday when he got home from school. He went up to his homework and I found the sweetheart fast asleep in his bed. And he needed that. And that definitely helped him. Like this morning, he was fine. But on a regular basis, it's not a good idea to be limiting your sleep, waking up too early, going to bed too late, and thinking you can make up for it with napping. It's not really going to be helpful in the long run. It's going to kind of perpetuate that off cycle. Your body needs that block of 7 to 9 consistent hours. Now, if you're going through treatment, and you will, fatigue is reported by 80 to 100% of people going through any kind of cancer treatment. So in that situation, it might be extremely helpful for you to nap, and you should absolutely give yourself permission to. So if you're suffering from fatigue and you could nap, I would say yes, you should be doing that. Let's see how long that is, because you still want that time at night as best you can. So maybe it's 15 to 20 minutes, maybe it's an hour, and if you can make it regular, that will be helpful, right? So if you need to nap for your health during treatment, if you can nap regularly, then that would be even better. But if you're way far out of treatment, or let's say you're taking, you're in treatment, but you're like on tamoxifen or something like that, as just an example, you probably don't need to be napping. It might not be helpful. But if you're in like aggressive chemo radiation and you're wiped out, please, by all means, in that scenario, napping can be very beneficial. Okay, we talked about sleep friendly. Okay, so how many people are doing this? Do you keep it cold? You got invest in yourself, get yourself, put on your holiday wish list a new comfortable pillow. Think about when you need to buy a mattress. These things are really important. And then also, if your dogs are taking up all the room, find a better spot for them, and having it be dark, quiet, and comfortable temperature wise. So cool. So how many people, who's doing that? Who's really focusing on that bedroom setup? Yeah, cold, dark, and quiet. That's awesome. Yeah. Yeah. I love this one. I think the blackout shade, small investments go a long way. And if you live in a city, you live in a noisy area, they're doing construction, there are a lot of like white noise machines or other machines that could do ocean sounds or things that would be soothing if you can't have the quiet, it's out of your control. All right. How about this one? How many people cut off their caffeine intake? 4 to 6 hours. Like I said, it might be 8 or more. If you haven't made this shift, I promise it really works. So you might be avoiding caffeine, which would be helpful. Alcohol in moderation, for sure, is something. Great job, guys. For alcohol moderation, it's definitely something really important. Again, I know this time of year, if you're doing holiday stuff, can be harder, but just do your best to try to pay attention to the clock when it comes to enjoying that. The blue lights, getting rid of the blue light 2 to 3 hours before bedtime. That's a hard one. I can tell you right now, my teenagers fail this one, but they sleep just fine. But yes, and for like, a lot of people make rules for themselves, so they don't keep their phone in the room. It depends safety. It depends on who needs to get a hold of you. I get it. But like, if you can charge your phone in the kitchen or somewhere else, you don't need it in your room. That's going to help any temptation. So, really try to cut the blue light before bed. Now, this one has a lot to do with like digestion. So avoiding very heavy or like large meals would be another version of heavy. Super spicy or a lot of sugar about 4 hours before bed. Of course, not spicy, but sugary foods are a common go-to late night snack. Not only is the process of having to digest your food interrupting your sleep, like specifically the sugar is affecting your insulin and blood sugar and other hormones that are, again, making it even harder to get that good quality sleep and impacting your digestion. Oh, good. Yeah. So Tandy, great idea. So the dark feature for reading, yes, that is a great idea. Hardcover books, I know they are hard to read unless you have a light, but a lamp, like a light bulb that is like a lower wattage that's for like reading, isn't a blue light. So if you have a hardcover book and that's doable, then great. But if not, yes, those features on the devices that block the blue light absolutely are very, very helpful. Ooh, jigsaw puzzles. I love that. That's a great flow kind of behavior, that's very, very relaxing. And the thing is, like, those relaxing activities, physiologically help you sleep because they actually, like, when you get like lost in the moment, so like knitting would be another one. It turns on what's called your parasympathetic nervous system, which is the opposite of your adrenaline system called your sympathetic nervous system. So it isn't just that it like relaxes you, it literally turns on the messengers in your body that are in charge of physical relaxation. So that's awesome. Yeah, jigsaw puzzles are super fun. Irene says she was shifting to decaf in the afternoon, but read an article that the process of making decaf and tea is more harmful. Yes, like organic coffee is probably a good idea. And decaf still has some caffeine. Processes vary depending on the brand and what you're buying, but the caffeine is difficult for sleep and immunity. So I would say net of all that is going for like a naturally decaffeinated tea, like an herbal tea in the afternoon would be your best bet because it's not hyper processed and it's not full of caffeine. So that would be my suggestion is real coffee, not that decaf is fake, but like regular coffee in the morning, followed by the naturally decaffeinated herbal tea. Or there are naturally decaffeinated coffee substitutes that come from plants that are delicious. They smell like coffee, they taste like coffee. So like chicory root based, like there's one called tea chino. That's a good example. There are some mushroom drinks that are like coffee, but they're not. Some have caffeine, some don't. So like look at that. But you might want to look at a plant-based coffee. It's not like an alternative, like it's fake, like just another kind of root that would have like the look and feel would be another idea at that time. Okay, so those were great suggestions and comments. And then really like reserving your bedroom for intimacy and for sleep, meaning, and this is hard if somebody has like a studio apartment. So you might want like a barrier kind of separation, like a screen or something nice, or like a tapestry, because, for example, don't put your work desk like in your bedroom. If you're paying your bills in the same room you're supposed to be sleeping in, it just harder for your brain to shut down. So really make your bedroom as much about sleep as you can, and not about activities that amp you up or require you to think a lot. Exercise regularly enough before bed, we talked about that, and then have that routine. So like you set up a pattern. This is just an example, right? Brush your teeth, meditate, write in your gratitude journal. You might write in your journal, or like do a puzzle, right? Brush your teeth, meditate, whatever. So this is something you guys can all look at and you guys can work on. The last thing quickly here, and stress really relates into sleep, but the last thing that I want to show you, and again, I'm happy to share this. We don't really have time to get into it, is around stress management. So this is from the Department of Veterans Affairs. So it's just a really good resource. Some of it is clearly specific about veterans, which may or may not be applicable to you. But as a workbook and a way of thinking about stress management, it's really great. So that's why I wanted to share it. And so I'll show you quickly this table of contents here. So like, what is your stress related goal? What are some of the keys to managing it? What are some tools? How might you incorporate mindfulness? And what are some other factors? And then there's some activities here. So like pleasant activities tip sheet are like helping you come up with a list of things that bring you joy, and that thereby naturally like reduce your stress. So this is a really good guidebook and a helpful way to make like SMART goals, which are goals that are very specific for you and actionable, so that you can really kind of move the needle and understand how to best, reduce stress, because it's a very vague category. I want to reduce my stress. Well, that could mean a lot of different things for a lot of different people. So this is just a way to start to have a system to start to think about stress in your life. And I would highly recommend utilizing the resources that are available to you at NECS, like the social work department. Many people work with a psychologist. There are some psychologists specifically trained in oncology as well. So, if you are dealing with a significant amount of stress, please talk to your doctor, talk to your nurse about some of these resources that are already available for you right at New England Cancer Center. Okay, so I want to kind of wrap up and see if there are any remaining questions or comments, and then I'm happy to share these resources with everyone. And next time we'll ask and see what you do for sleep, how'd it go, and kind of learn about that. And before any questions come in, I just want to thank everyone for being here and participating, and also hope everybody has a very happy holidays, very happy new year. And we will be back together in January in the new year.
I think you have one question. Yeah. Okay.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I was looking in the wrong place. Where do mushrooms come into nutrition? Oh my gosh, many places. So if you like mushrooms, then this is good news. So mushrooms are really rich in vitamin D. They also have a lot of plant-based compounds that support our immune system. So they're a really great plant-based food for supporting our immunity. They can also be a helpful replacement for meat or a way to decrease the amount of meat in a recipe, because when you cook them, they kind of take on some of the texture, and they're a good replacement for red meat too. Now, listen, I'm not saying like it's exactly the same, as having a burger, but like mushrooms can really come into play in recipes as a meat replacement, but they are immune supporting is kind of where we see a lot of their benefits, and vitamin D is part of that. Awesome.
Any other questions? All right.
Awesome. Great. Well,